Hey friends! Thanks for popping by. So, for the last several weeks, I've been looking into solo D&D, and honestly, I'm really excited. Venturing into solo D&D has been so much fun, and I've truly been super impatient to play the characters I've made, but I know I can't play all of them at once, and I honestly can't decide which I want to play first. So, in typical YouTuber fashion, I've decided to use this opportunity to make content out of one of my hobbies. Playing D&D for the last few years, I've really enjoyed drawing my characters out and being able to put a face to the name of the person I was supposed to be for the next couple hours. But when you're the forever DM of your group, it's not very often that you get a chance to make characters to play. So most of my character art lately has been NPCs that I use when I DM for my friends. The Phoenix, Kide, Neptune, and others have all been designed with the express purpose of being non-player characters. I've sometimes wondered if I should feel a little more honored that I get to play so many characters as a DM, but honestly, coming up with so many distinct characters and voices for all of them is really exhausting. Especially because most of them are just intended to fill the space and aren't actually that important to the story. Emmett, the blacksmith, is only good for a couple interactions because, let's be real, your players don't care that Emmett has a pet rooster and is great at nose whistling. So the NPCs I make usually end up being pretty surface level unless they are really, really important to the plot. And even then, not many of them get dedicated character growth. When I run a game, it isn't about me. The characters are furniture and the setting is just a backdrop for my friends to feel like they're cool, which they are, and they make me laugh with all of their shenanigans. But I just got done DMing a 3-year-long campaign and I want to play, but since I don't have a DM, I'm gonna play a game by myself and be my own DM. I created the premise for 3 total adventures and 4 characters that I want to play. 2 of these adventures only have 1 character, and 1 has 2. The first adventure is more of a spy/self-discovery/taking down the system type. For vibes, think Stranger Things meets 007 meets your typical magic school tropes. The next story is a rescue mission, and this one comes with a trigger warning. There is mention of kidnapping, child labor, and trafficking. So if you need to skip that section when it comes, I'll put the relevant time codes up now, and I'll give you a warning right before that section so you can skip it. I know it's a really sensitive and heavy topic for many, and I did try to be as respectful as possible while focusing on the character and their experience. And for the third, the premise is pretty much what everyone expects when they hear D&D. Think Critical Role, Lord of the Rings, your typical fantasy adventure. And this one is the story with 2 characters. Both have their own unique personalities, and I will say they do follow some tropes and character archetypes to a certain extent. The 2 of them would travel together not out of desire, but necessity, at least at first. These aren't going to be long backstories or anything. In fact, they're actually quite whittled down from what I have in other documents, and I'm not really going to be talking about design choices, at least not in this video. But I think I've talked your ears off long enough for this intro, so let's go ahead and get on to our character drawings. The Darwith Institute of Grand Wizardry, a technical school renowned for pushing the boundaries of magic, harbored many dark secrets, the arcane-born experiments being one. Driven by a twisted belief in wizardly progress, the Institute sought to improve humanity through deeply unethical magical manipulation. Children, both born and unborn, were subjected to arcane infusions, hoping to unlock extraordinary magical potential. Most failed, but some, like Willow Marsk, were deemed successes. Willow was illusion-born. From the moment of her birth, she possessed an uncanny ability to evade perception. Wizards present struggled to recall her appearance even as they looked directly at her, a clear indicator of success. Growing up within the Institute's walls, Willow and the other arcane-born, separated by their magical school affiliations, only truly interacted during mealtimes. At the chime of the 6th, 12th, and 18th bells, they would gather in the mess hall, a kaleidoscope of color-coded uniforms, filling the long tables with chatter. For the Illusion-born, however, connection proved difficult. In a world that struggled to truly see them, loneliness was a constant companion. To combat this, the wizards provided each Illusion-born with a different colored ribbon to wear, a simple identifier allowing them to at least be recognized by name. But the ribbons were never intended as a true fix, nor as an act of kindness. As the Illusion-born matured, they were systematically isolated from the others. The illusionist wizards had a different vision, a future of clandestine service. Every Illusion-born child knew of the special training awaiting them with High Mage Eberron. The details remained shrouded, but completion promised an important job. For many, it was a source of excitement. For Willow, it would become a source of profound conflict. The Darwith Institute recognized the unique advantage of having agents who were essentially invisible. Thus, High Mage Eberron scouted each Illusion-born, ultimately assigning them to one of two tracks: intelligence collection or enemy elimination. At 8, Willow began her training as a spy. By 11, the world before her special courses was a distant blur. She learned to observe every detail, to become a shadow, and when necessary, to deliver deadly poisons. She hardened herself, dedicating herself to fulfilling any mission regardless of the moral cost. Yet, in solitude, the weight of her actions pressed down on her. She didn't fully understand why, given her carefully constructed upbringing. Nevertheless, she felt a deep unease, a wrongness in the work she did. The High Mage had assured her it was vital, but she didn't know if she believed that anymore. Then, during an assignment to spy on a foreign dignitary, everything changed. Willow, working alongside another Illusion-born, was infiltrating Counselor Vogtman's personal study during one of his lavish parties, when she stumbled upon a horrific scene, Vogtman being stabbed to death by an assassin cloaked in black. Against all her training, Willow rushed to the dying man, the cloaked figure fleeing into the night. She tried to help, but it was too late. With his last breath, Edward Vogtman pulled a small hidebound pocketbook from the inside of his coat and pressed it into Willow's bloody hands. And with his final breath, he pleaded with her to not let High Mage Eberron find it. Quxori was born into a world torn apart by war. Their home country, Yartura, was a place of constant fighting and death. Horrified by the violence, their parents, along with other relatives and neighbors, fled when Quxori was only a few days old. They made their way to a refugee camp in the dwarven settlement of Nindwar. But this would not be the end of their troubles. Motivated by honor and deep care for others, Quxori's uncles Urakir and Katos returned to Yartura to help with the fighting and rescue more citizens. Meanwhile, the rest of the family tried to live as normally as possible in Nindwar, and Quxori grew into a fun-loving, sociable child who always saw the best in people. But their kind, loving energy seemed to anger one of their neighbors in Nindwar, Borin Thornhill. And in response, he did something unthinkable. When Quxori turned 6, their family was taken and trafficked by the same people who had waged war on Yartura, all in the name of their goddess Tevelia. Separated from their parents, Quxori was sent to labor in a Lacloetian factory, making flags and uniforms for the army. They rebelled constantly against their captors, and in response, the Lacloetian mages cursed them, turning them into an obedient servant, unable to refuse even the smallest of tasks. Quxori was eventually sold to an elven woman as an emotional doll until she died. Finally free, but alone, Quxori vowed to reunite their family. They searched endlessly for their aunt and parents, disguising themselves and doing whatever they had to in order to survive. In time, they learned to tap into the energy of their curse, using it to their advantage. On the eve of their 16th birthday, Quxori finally got the opportunity to infiltrate a Lacluetian trading post where Denya, their aunt, was being held. Using their curse, they manipulated the guards into unblocking Denya's cell and creating a distraction, allowing them to escape into the night. They arrived back in Nindwar with few incidents, relieved and grateful for the familiar dwarven architecture. With Denya's help, Quxori gathered evidence of Borin's involvement in the trafficking scheme and presented it to the elders of Nindwar, leading to his banishment. Quxori and Denya found a small cottage and turned it into a reading cafe, the Blooming Book, a haven of quiet conversation, delicious pastries, and floral teas. But Quxori couldn't rest. Haunted by the image of their parents, determined to reunite their family, they set off once more, carrying the love of their family and the unwavering belief that they would be reunited. A vigil's sworn duty is to protect a single person to whom they are intrinsically tied since birth. This person is not just the vigil's charge, they are their reason for living. And no one believes in this tenet more than the Boulet family. To them, a vigil ward bond is everything, not least because they are and have been bonded to the most prestigious family line in Westmere for centuries. The royal family, to be precise. The Boulets have been in the Crown's intimate service for as long as any of them can remember. They have grown large enough now that they fill out the majority of the palace staff. And they wouldn't have it any other way. As cooks, ladies' maids, knights, and even sometimes royal advisors, the Boulet family take their duties very seriously. Some may say too seriously. For this family, it is an exceedingly rare occurrence for any vigil to be bonded to a ward who is not one of the royals, or at least part of the noble court. And so, when Pierre Boulet was not only bonded to a common woman, but fell in love with and married her, the rest of the family saw this as a great shame, and they never let him forget it, through the birth of all of his children, until Isabelle was born. The prime traits of any vigil are their halos, which typically appear in adolescence, and vestigial wings, which Isabelle had on her forearms. But other traits that are seen as indicative of a closeness to the divine are multiple eyes, marbled fingertips, and feathers around the joints, all of which Isabelle sported since birth. This child was immediately seen as a benison to the Boulet name, and even more so when her halo manifested at the age of 12. It was shaped like a crown. Given the girls' closeness to Prince Antoine, they saw this as a sign from their goddess that Isabelle was meant to join the royal family and solidify the family's bond in the most sacred way they know. However, Antoine was not Isabelle's ward. That was certain. She did not have that connection to him. They were simply friends. However, the family did not give up hope, and despite the knowledge that they would not be able to, still tried to force the vigil ward bond between the two. They convinced the royal family that this match was meant to be, and so began Isabelle's training to be a respected lady of the court. She was taught manners, etiquette, languages, and more in the pursuit of making her the most worthy addition to the royal family that she could be. However, the pull towards her true ward and the pushing from her family caused a lot of resentment to build within her. And when she was a young teen, she rebelled against this match and formed an unhealthy relationship with a young man named Amand Vidal. The Boulet family, especially Isabelle's grandmother, tried very hard to force the young girl to break off her relationship. But the harder anyone tried to make her let go, the tighter she held on to Amand, until it was too late. As a young woman, Isabelle's trust was broken by Amand, and he left without a drop of remorse. In response to this heartbreak, Isabelle let herself be led by her family back towards the match they had chosen for her. But not for long. For shock turned to sadness, sadness turned to despair, and despair turned to rage. In her grief and anger, Isabelle turned away from ladylike pursuits, and began to throw herself into the world of a knight. This change took the rest of her family off guard, but they didn't mind it, as they assumed that Isabelle was merely working hard to be able to protect Prince Antoine and the rest of the royal family. This was not the case. Once Isabelle felt confident with a glaive, She ran away, keen to find her ward and never see or hear from her family ever again. For years she wandered, taking odd jobs and allowing her rage to fuel her survival, taking lovers occasionally and inevitably ending every relationship for fear of being hurt again. Until at last, she found who she was looking for. Sadani was always a hardworking woman, fiercely independent and giving to a fault. So, when she fell pregnant at a young age, she naturally tried to do it all on her own and maintain her life as it had been. But her parents would not hear of it. While they respected their daughter's courage and drive, they also knew that raising a child was going to be tough work, and Sadani could use a little support. Eventually, she relented, and her mother and father helped her prepare diligently for the arrival of her baby. When Sadani's daughter arrived, there was no little family better equipped to love and nurture a little bundle of joy as they were. Not only did Sadani have the support of her parents, but she also had the entire village of Brisk Creek behind her. The little girl, who Sadani named Song, was the pride and joy of her mother and grandparents. To no one's surprise, Song inherited her mother's warm and giving nature, as well as her independent spirit. She was always taking it upon herself to help whoever needed it, and never asked for anything in return. To her family, community and connection were everything. It didn't matter that she didn't have a father. It didn't matter that her village was poor. Song was simply pleased to have loved ones to surround herself with everywhere she went. But, although the light shines bright for a time, all know that it's only a matter of time before the most luminous candles burn out. And so it was for Sadani. A light that shone so bright and touched so many lives was unfortunately extinguished when she was only 26 years old. Too young to die. Too young to leave her dear Song. Too young. The village mourned as a sweet, generous, beautiful family of 4 was made 3 by a cruel twist of fate. Song was able to grieve healthily. After all, she had her grandmother and grandfather to look after her and share in her tears. It was a long time before Song fully accepted and finished grieving her mother's passing, but she had support to make it through, and eventually, she committed to living her life to the fullest to honor her mother. Song had always possessed a passion for music. It was a beautiful irony that her name ended up perfectly describing her deepest wish, which was to become a musician. So, she did what she could, practiced hard, built her own instruments, and eventually, with her grandparents and all of Brisk Creek's encouragement, was able to join a traveling band of performers and set off on a tour of Ashton. Surrender of Honor traveled far and wide across the kingdom, dancing and playing in taverns and on street corners, and having the time of their lives. Song was elated to be able to see new places and meet new people. Having friends who brought her laughter and music that brought her joy, Song couldn't ask for anything more. But life has a way of giving you lemons when you least expect it, and in a little tavern in the town of Velskar, Song would encounter one of the sourest, strangely angelic lemons she had ever met before. That's it for this video. Honestly, I had so much fun creating these four. Each one of them is a unique character, which is honestly kind of saying a lot, I feel like, for me. I try not to create the same character over and over again, but alas, I think I do kind of tend to fall into same character syndrome when it comes to creating my D&D characters. Honestly, being able to put them down on paper, or rather a digital canvas, and see them come to life in this way was honestly one of the most fun parts. Another one of the most fun parts was character creation itself, and that's where I'd like to give a few shoutouts, specifically to Ayeoops, Pointy Hat, and Ginny Di. These three creators are the ones who inspired me to make this series, and provided me with, honestly, I feel like, pretty necessary tools to be able to make it happen. Ginny Di provided the character questions, Pointy Hat provided the character creation options, and Ayeoops gave me a little bit of confidence to feel like I could actually delve into this, and maybe some people might like it. On top of that, I hope that this series will give me a kind of boost in the direction of delivering more... What's the word? What is the word? It's, consistent. Consistent content. That's the word. Honestly, now that I've finished with these character drawings, I feel a little bit more at ease in my decision. And I feel like no matter what happens, and no matter how many people are interested in this series, I'm gonna be happy with it. Which is honestly all that I've ever really wanted coming out of my content, so that's good, right? But as a little extra incentive for anybody who is interested to get involved, please give me all of your feedback about which characters you'd like to see more of, and maybe what specific backstory questions you might have for each of these characters. Every comment I get, and yes, I do mean every comment I get, will get a shout out in my next solo D&D campaign video. So, rush, and I do mean rush down to the comments section, because I'm really eager to see what you guys all think. Okay, that's it for me today. Don't forget to like and subscribe on your way out, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!